Hey everyone, today I'm summarizing The Sleeper by Gillian White. This isn't a review, just my take, and it includes major spoilers. If you're interested, the purchase link is in the description. Let's dive in. Fergus is married to Clover, and they have 2 daughters. During Christmas, Fergus's friends, Jonna and Diana, are also invited. This is how they usually spend Christmas every year. However, this time, their holiday was a mess. A storm knocked out the electricity, and on top of that, Fergus and Jonna discovered a dead woman, which they later decided to hide in the barn to avoid worrying their families. Meanwhile, while preparing for Christmas, Clover had several close encounters with death and blamed her mother-in-law, Violet, for them. First, she fell down the stairs. Then, she accidentally drank acid, thinking it was gin. Finally, she found broken glass in her pudding. Clover raised her concerns with Fergus, but he wouldn't listen, insisting his mother could never do such a thing. Clover turned to Jonna and Diana for help, and together they tried to convince Fergus, but he remained hesitant. Meanwhile, back at Happy Haven, a hotel for the elderly, Valerie is worried because one of the residents, Miss Bates, is missing. Valerie is the manageress, and the Tarbucks are her employers. When she called the police, she subtly hinted at their possible involvement, having seen them in Miss Bates's room before. Her suspicions were confirmed when Miss Kessel, Miss Bates's roommate, confided in her with details she hadn't shared with the police. Miss Kessel revealed that Miss Bates had been in a mental institution since childhood. She had stayed at Happy Haven because she was looking for her sister. Miss Kessel also admitted that Miss Bates behaved strangely. She often talked to herself and moaned throughout the night. When Valerie examined the documents Miss Kessel provided, she noticed that the Tarbucks had been paying for Miss Bates's stay. Immediately, Valerie suspected the Tarbucks were involved in her disappearance. Valerie was ready to use this information to track down Miss Bates. However, when the Tarbucks made her a generous offer, she chose to keep everything to herself in exchange for the bribe. She spoke with the Tarbucks, and they denied any involvement in Miss Bates's disappearance. The truth was more complicated. Miss Bates had been locked up in a mental institution for many years, and Jason Tarbuck had been a nurse there. Jason had been involved in the death of one of the patients, a friend of Miss Bates. After that incident, Jason left the institution. 5 years later, Miss Bates saw an advertisement in a magazine about Jason Tarbuck opening Happy Haven. She sent him a letter, blackmailing him with knowledge of what he had done. Jason complied, getting her out of the institution and offering her free accommodation at Happy Haven. The Tarbucks had no involvement in Miss Bates's disappearance. They just wanted to make sure the documents she left behind didn't reveal their secret and tarnish their reputation. As for what happened to Miss Bates, she died on her way to kill her stepsister, Violet, whom she had been searching for. Miss Bates's stepsister is Violet, who was currently staying on the farm with Fergus for Christmas. Miss Bates first went to Violet's home but was advised to go to the farm instead. During her journey there, a storm struck, and she drowned. Her body was later found by Fergus and Jonna. Miss Bates had been determined to find Violet and kill her. When Violet's mother died, her father remarried a woman named Sheena. Sheena had a daughter, Kate Lewis, who later changed her surname to Bates after being released from the institution. Sheena treated Violet terribly, and during a vacation with the 3 of them, Violet pushed Sheena, guided by the voice of Clover's late mother. Violet ran after Sheena but then heard her mother's voice again, telling her what to do next. Violet screamed and pointed at Kate, accusing her of pushing her own mother. Kate was then locked up in a mental institution, where she remained for 60 years, only being released later by the Tarbucks. As for Violet, she visited Kate only once after 50 years, and it was out of mere curiosity she didn't speak to her. To this day, Violet has never told anyone the truth about how she killed Sheena and framed Kate for it. For this year's Christmas, Violet was blamed for a crime she didn't commit. She was accused of trying to kill her son's wife, Clover. Violet could hear the whispers around her, and she also knew that Clover had been having an affair with Jonna. However, Violet wasn't the one trying to harm Clover, it was Diana. Diana had been Clover's best friend since childhood. She's also Jonna's wife, but, at the same time, an ex-lover of Fergus. What no one knows is that her 2 twin sons are not Jonna's, but Fergus's. Her affair with Fergus happened only once, unlike Jonna and Clover's ongoing affair, which Diana is aware of but isn't threatened by, as she is no longer particularly fond of Jonna. Diana began to resent Clover, feeling that Clover was always complaining and ungrateful. Diana also realized just recently that turning down a life with Fergus in favor of being with Jonna was a mistake. Right now, Diana just wants Clover to leave Fergus rather than constantly ranting about how awful he is, yet refusing to leave. After 3 attempts to harm Clover, Diana finally succeeds in killing her. Since Clover had been following Fergus around, fearful of what Violet might do next, Diana saw the perfect opportunity to push Clover into a pit of muck. Diana shoved her, and Clover drowned. Clover tried calling for Fergus, but by the time he heard her, it was too late. He rushed to save her, but she was already buried deep beneath the muck. Coincidentally, Violet was standing at the edge. The last thing Clover saw before she drowned was Violet, but there was a shadow behind her walking away. It was Diana, though no one else saw her. Fergus only saw Violet and immediately blamed her. They called for help to retrieve Clover's body. When the police arrived, Jonna also showed them a body they had found, which turned out to be the missing Miss Bates. The police then informed the Tarbucks and Valerie. Violet was locked up in a mental institution. She tried to continue her work as a medium, but it seemed she could no longer do so because Kate's voice had begun haunting her. The End of the Sleeper by Gillian White. That's it for The Sleeper. If you enjoyed the summary, grab the book from the link below. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other videos. Thanks for watching.